Moving on to new business 4B, which is the review of gift disclosure statements received from the following county officers or employees: Valerie Poindexter, Karen Eoff, Aaron Chung, Diane Lee, Drew Kanuha, Darren Arai, Susan Leloy, Herbert Richards III, Eileen O'Hara, Miley David, Jennifer Ruggles, Harry Kim, and Will Okabe.
Madam Chair, those will be passed out right now.
Just one question, if I could, before we start this review. Do these people also submit, these people on this list, these 13 people, they also submit financial statements as well?
Generally, my understanding is, well, from looking at the list, yes.
Yet we don't see those, just the gift disclosures.
Well, the timing of their financial disclosure depends upon when they were required to do so via the code, whether when they were elected or appointed to a board or commission. So it depends on the timing.
Because I know in the years that I've been here, we see ones for employees of the county or people from boards and commissions, but I've never seen one for a elected official.
Those
Are filed publicly with the clerk's office. Yep.
So
So
why, just as a courtesy, why wouldn't we get copies of those as well to review as part of our process?
we could.
Or is it considered that we just walk next door and ask for them?
Well, that's so. This came up before, remember?
Right.
Right.
Right. So, Mr. Goodnow was clerk. He can.
Well, from my standpoint as a board member, in order for us to carry out the functions of what we're supposed to do, we should review them. I agree.
Yeah.
As part of a process, even though it's public and they're open.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm assuming these gift disclosures are open in public as well. And yet we're getting these for review, it would seem.
because that's required by the code, the gift
Yeah.
disclosures.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, while it's not required in terms of the financial disclosures of the elected officers, we could. I don't.
I mean-
we should probably put that in the rules, though. I would think.
That's
right?
a good idea.
Some authority.
I got to make a note of that.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, and in a way, the gift disclosure statements are kind of independent from the confidential financial disclosure forms. And I don't know that any of that would be reflected in these forms. So they're kind of two separate things. But it's important that we do have a look at the confidential financial disclosure forms as well. Then that'll give us a little bit of a better idea how to deal with the gift disclosure statements. Okay, so I guess we're gonna just look at those and then pass them down, and people can put their I'll just start bringing them out.
John Henry.
Put their initials on the top. According to the code, then, if there are no gifts to disclose, they still have to file a statement.
Question.
No, they are not required to file a statement, but some of them do, and that's okay too.
Okay.
I mean, like in the case of Diane Lay here, who's Director of Department of Research and Development, she submits a gift disclosure of $2,913 for reimbursement of travel expenses. Occurred between 2016, 2017. As chair of the Ag Conference, I mean, is there a limit? I mean, I'm reviewing this, but I don't know, is there a limit, or is that a cause for concern, or just what it is? But it looks like she's doing business on an Ag Conference that would be in support of the county, so I don't, I don't know if, what it is. If there's like a limit or over a dollar amount or something like that.
There's no limit or dollar amount in our code. Mr. Wiseman, did you have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, two concerns. Isn't there a minimum amount? I mean, like over $50 that
Right. So the code talks
Right.
about an excess of $100
Okay.
reporting requirements, as well as two other factors, right? So to answer Member Robinson's question, the fact that it's over $100 or it's $2,900, there isn't anything in the code that that amount in and of itself rises to any level or threshold concern. Because other factors you would need to consider. I think, in the past, Board Member Robinson, we talked about, the board reviewed other types of gifts where we looked at other factors as far as whether it was related to the job, whether it was in furtherance of a county interest, things of that nature. There's a test, right, the State Ethics Commission uses, so.
I have one other concern. I think it's just a waste of resource and time to have someone submit if they didn't receive a gift. To say that I didn't get any gifts. I mean, it's an affirmative action if you receive the gift to report it. So I see a waste of paper, a waste of time. We all had to look at this to see that someone did not receive a gift. Somehow I'd like to see some action taken. I don't know if it would require a rule or just a memo perhaps to employees of the government, officers of the government, that they don't have to submit anything if they didn't. It's an affirmative action, just to clarify that.
Could I respond to that, please? I just think to make sure the record is clear, that we have a record that they've stated that they received no gifts, I think it's a little bit of a safeguard,
And
I think.
what's the timetable? Is this a periodic event?
Once a year by June 30th.
Once a year?
I'll just read from it.
Okay, once a year, I don't really have such a problem. That's it.
Uh,
All
okay,
right, so
go ahead.
you can disregard my concern. I thought it was more frequent than that. But once a year is fine with me.
Right. It says if the requirements are met, and so they don't have to in the code.
Mhm.
It's not a requirement, so you
Yeah.
could send them,
Okay.
and put on the paperwork when we send, do not, but you're right, we should put it in the rule if we're gonna do that.
Yeah, the code is pretty specific, but it's a little wordy in terms of the requirements to file a gift disclosure. In other words,
Yes.
if you didn't, it doesn't say in simple term language, if you didn't have a gift, you don't have to file anything. And I suppose that could help. It would be redundant, but it could help because that's more simplistic.
I agree,
right.
if they sign it, at least you have it, right?
have it.
Then
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
why not? So we'll just, leave that as it is then, I guess. Thank you thank you for that.
And I think what's happening is they want to be proactive because we did have some issues in the past with gift disclosures or lack thereof, and so I think and especially those who were involved either directly or peripherally, are kind of covering themselves now by putting it in and saying there's nothing. So I can see where their thinking is coming from, but I think spelling it out always helps. Yeah, being transparent. So these are all yours.
I'd like to just ask another question for my own edification as regards the disposition of gifts that are given to officials. And like in the case of the one I'm looking at here from the mayor that'll eventually get down there, it says, handmade snakeskin Okinawan instrument, $500 in value. They don't really give it to Harry Kim personally. They give it to, in essence, Harry Kim because he's the mayor. He's the representative of the county. So does that snakeskin Okinawan instrument remain with the county, or does the mayor take it home and it becomes part of his personal assets? And the same with all the other, teacup sets, a handmade silk shirt made in Okinawa, $700. I mean, if you start looking at that, where does it go?
I'm not able to answer that question. I think the mayor would, because I'm not sure the context of the gift, whether it was given to him personally or the office of the mayor. My expectation is it would be the office of the mayor when they have when they exchange gifts, through sister city type visits, things of that nature. But yeah, we could. But my expectation is that's. I don't know. I can't answer that. I can't speak for the mayor. No.
So in other words, we really don't have any say-so or understanding of what the disposition of the gift was. It was just a gift that was given, and it could stay in the mayor's office or it could be taken home, and it could be any number of things that happened to it. Like in the case of Sinbei, I'm assuring he would share that with all of his office staff.
Seems to me there should be a well-settled principles on that issue, because you have it around the United States, in all sorts of forms of government, from municipalities up to the governorship, up to the White House, you know. And I'm sure there's principles and policies in that.
Right, so that, yeah, so my expectation would be is that the gift would be to the county of Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
And he's, the current sitting mayor, so he's just making a record of it so that, there's public knowledge because it's a public office. So I don't see any concerns unless members have them because,
I would say, when you, at the gift requirement reporting, it's not clear to me whether if I were in my official capacity or not, I received something. So I think, on the side of caution, they're probably just putting it in. But reality, I mean, I don't know if any of you have been in the basement here under the building. There's a lot of stuff down there. You would be very surprised. But we could inquire with the office of the mayor, but when you read the code section, it's like, I would put it in, even if it was to the office of the mayor, right? So it's probably what's being done.
So we're saying probably the disposition is going into the basement and remains in the ownership of the
It
county?
could be.
Maybe,
Well,
we don't really know.
Well, what I'm saying is probably when you read the code, it doesn't specify. If I received it as an official, it doesn't specify. It's anything that could influence you in your role. Like, oh, they gave us that an instrument. I love that thing. If there's even a semblance of that, they put it down, right?
Yeah, but my thing is not reporting it. It's maybe there should be another column there that says disposition. So you got value, you got the item that was given, who it was given by, the value of the item, disposition. There's not anything that tells you what the disposition is. I mean, would they have given a snakeskin instrument to Harry if he hadn't have got reelected? The answer is no,
Yeah, again, I think some research could discover some well-settled principles in that. State, local, et cetera.
I assume there's maybe, somewhere else in the code, something about that perhaps, about your official capacity, or I don't know that. But would we have the authority to request that and
Well-
ask for that information? Because the more the better, right? I kind of agree with Mr. Robinson on that ground. I'm just want to make sure we have the authority to do that, to ask that.
normally, and Mr. Goodnight, you can confirm this if you remember this as well. If it's a gift to the county, doesn't the council have to acknowledge the gift, right? There's a
Right.
code provision that allows for that.
Yeah,
So
see-
actually, there is another provision that you just mentioned, right?
But I'm
right.
not sure of the detail. I don't remember exactly. It was a long time ago. I was
So the point I'm getting to is that when you look at the gift disclosures here, the context is that the person received the gift, right?
Yes.
So in actuality, if it's a gift made to the county, then wouldn't the council have to receive the gift, whether it's a donation of property, item, right? There's another code provision, and I can research that. I mean, we don't
Right.
have to.
Is there a dollar amount that you up to so much that they have to actually receive it?
No, and then that goes back to answering, Rick's question
Right.
about, because if it's just made to the person who, in this case, that seems to be the more logical or plausible approach.
Right.
Mr. Wiseman had a
Yeah, I think we'd be inventing the wheel again, because I think this is well settled
Yep.
somewhere. There's a great caption one time, and it shows a law library with just hundreds and hundreds of books and papers on a huge table, and there's 3 lawyers there, and the caption is, "The answer's here somewhere."
But I think we should call it, if we do this, we should call it the archive, not the basement.
Yeah, it just,
Oh, thank you.
if I could, right from our code of ethics in the county charter, it says all public property and equipment are to be treated as public trusts and are not to be used in a proprietary manner or for personal purposes without proper consent. So it goes to if something's donated to the mayor or the mayor's office, or they say, here, Mayor, this is yours, but it's not really yours, it's the county's. Is it being used for personal purposes without proper consent? Or, I mean, what happens? So I just think disposition is important, and it's just me, and I'm not trying to
No.
reinvent the wheel.
I think we should definitely investigate this. I think if our corp counsel could, do a comparison with the other provisions in the code as to that, and, right, should they even be writing it down on these forms if it is an official gift, right? So,
In all fairness, the form doesn't really designate or differentiate, the questions that we're asking, right?
Right.
So like
Exactly.
what Rick is asking for, is pretty straightforward, right? If we wanted a separate column for disposition, I mean, that's fair, right? But we didn't ask that question, so, but, we can follow up on that because the questions are relevant, yep.
I mean, if it said in the basement of the county building, hey, that's fine with me. But if it says taken home and used,
no, I've been corrected, quite rightly. You mean the county archives. In the safest place in the building.
I just think it's
Thank you.
All right, so you have a few more minutes.
Oh, I better get this quick.
Are you finished with this?
Yes.
so the question is, how would we do that? Are we going to ask for further clarification?
Oh, no. In my opinion, those gift statements are satisfactory because they fulfilled all the requirements in the code. What the board is asking for is further follow-up and further clarification on the procedures and processes. So we can follow up on that, and if we can figure out a way to best do that, or not reinvent the wheel if it's already there,
Right.
then we can. So there's two options, but the recommendation would be to file these gift statements because they've complied with their code requirements. But on the board's end, since you're asking these questions, which are relevant, that we can further follow up by figuring out which would be the best way to get that information.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can ask for anything further at this point because the code doesn't require that unless.
No, I'd say, I mean, with all deference, and I think you're on the right track with this whole thing. I think these have met the requirements of the code, right? And it's, all it is a disclosure, and I think we should just let these go, but look towards the future.
And in this case, because of the June 30th deadline, we'll have technically a year, to kind of, if we're going to make any changes, to do it ahead of time so that they know any additional requirements that we may have. And then as we prepare for next year's filing, then we'll have more information. And it is tricky, like when you do get a gift, right, what do you do with it? I mean, some stuff, the goodies, I'm sure they're consumed, right? You would assume that whatever, one of the disclosures, whatever they put as goodies. But some of the other items, a shirt, same thing, if you wear it, that's pretty much your shirt after that, right? I don't think we want to put it back into the archives. So I think just to be clear on those things makes a lot of sense to me as well. Go ahead.
So in Hawaii County Code Section 2-161, it's Article 30, gifts or donations, dedications. So there's specific provisions in terms of gifts and donations accepted on behalf of the county, and there's a procedure for acceptance. So it is specified here, but rather than go into that detail today, I can address that at our next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
I think we're good.
That sounds good.
2161.
2161.
I'll email that to you, to all the board members too, so you have that available
you.
for next time.
Thank you.
All right.